All right, Trevon. So a crazy day in the NBA world, a crazy trade deadline day. Um, so we just gonna get straight into it. We have the biggest deal of this season in terms of the trade deadline and getting the deal done. The Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers, the trade that a lot of people were talking about. Um, they pulled it off. They did it. It was crazy, man. So I just want to get your thoughts on that. So I'll give you the details of the trade. So the Brooklyn Nets will get Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, a 2022 first round pick, and a 2027 first round pick. And that 2027 one is top eight protected. And Philadelphia, they get James Harden and Paul Millsap. So what is your reaction to this trade, man? And who do you think won the trade?
I feel like as of now, it's possible to say that the Brooklyn Nets might have won the trade, honestly, because if you think about it, they got a lot of what they needed. They needed more size. They got another shooter and Seth Curry. And then you also got to remember Joe Harris hasn't really been able to play this season. So if you're imagining, hopefully Kyrie's availability becomes greater, and he's able to somehow play these home games. There's been reports talking about that that the Nets have optimism that the mandate will get lifted in New York. So you're potentially talking about a lineup with um, Kyrie, KD, Seth Curry, Joe Harris, and Ben Simmons maybe at the five, or you could throw Drummond in there. You still have Claxton. I feel like the biggest pieces though are Seth Curry and Drummond because they really needed another big and they needed more shooting around them. And I feel like when it all comes into fruition, it's going to really be something really good. But you also have to think about the 76ers side because, I mean, just the duo between Harden and Embiid alone, like, that's what I'm really excited to see.
Unstoppable.
I'm really excited to see because they're already playing well. You keep Tyrese Maxey, you keep Thibault, you still have Harris. So it's going to be really exciting to see, especially come around playoff time.
Yeah, no, I definitely see where you're coming from. And honestly, for me, I don't know who won the trade. I think it's something where time will tell because
Hmm.
this is how I look at it. All right. So I break it down into two different sections. So who won the trade like right now in terms of the present and who won the trade for the future? Because if you look at it, Philadelphia, they get James Harden to pair with Joel Embiid. They offload Simmons, who kind of was holding, in a way, their season hostage because we all saw the potential of the team. Um, and you add James Harden to that team now, they automatically jump to one of the top teams in the East in terms of contention for the Eastern Conference Finals and making it to the finals, right? So in terms of right now, the I think the Philadelphia 76ers set themselves up really well to accomplish that goal of making it to the finals this season. Uh, but if you look at the Nets, it's like Kyrie's only playing part time. Simmons hasn't played since they lost to the Hawks in the playoffs last year, and then KD's rehabbing from the injury he just had to this season. So it's going to take a lot of figuring stuff out in Brooklyn, right? And you do get Seth Curry, like you pointed out, which helps out with your shooting, and they do get bigger in their front court with Drummond, right? So I definitely see where you're coming from, where you say Brooklyn definitely got more pieces to fit around KD and Kyrie, but at the same time, it's just so much going on. I don't know if it's gonna necessarily work like this year, right? Like it
Well,
would with the Sixers.
I will say the same thing. I will say this. I mean, but are you really in a worse situation than you were in when you had Harden? Because you were still in a mess with chemistry. You had talks about Harden not wanting to be there. So, I mean, he was going to walk probably in free agency. So while you can, you might as well get something. I feel like you're no more confused than you were when Harden was there. So for me, I feel like this probably has a lot more upside because if you don't win the championship this year, you don't have to worry about necessarily losing any pieces. Maybe Seth Curry, or something like that. Maybe Drummond because he's been finding new teams these past few years. But if you were to not win the championship with Harden, it would be a bust that you lose them for nothing. But
And
I
that's
feel
why
like you're kind of in the same boat, so it's not really that big of a deal in my opinion for the
and that's
Brooklyn Nets.
why and that's why I was about to say I think Brooklyn won for the future
Hmm.
because you have those picks. You have those picks. You have Simmons, who's a way younger player than James Harden. You have him in a contract for a longer period of time, and you can do what you want with Kyrie, but and you still have KD, right? So that's why I was saying I think if you look at it right now, the Sixers won the trade for right now this season, while the Brooklyn Nets won it for the future, and they still have a very high chance of winning this year if they can pull everything
Yeah,
together this year. But I just think it's a lot more question marks with the Brooklyn Nets in terms of this season because you have two guys that you really don't know anything about this season because Kyrie's part time, Ben hasn't played in a while, and then you have to figure all that out. Whereas the Sixers, James has been playing, Joel's been dominating, and then those guys around him, they've been playing together. So I think
yeah,
the Sixers have a much better chance in terms of team continuity this year than the Brooklyn Nets do. But I
yeah.
will say this, I still would take Milwaukee over both those teams right now, and I would take Miami over both those teams right now. But that's just my opinion and where we are today, though.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you as far as the now and the for the future because it's just a lot of things you got to figure out with Brooklyn. Especially I feel like Kyrie is the main piece. Ben Simmons also because they said he was getting mental help or something like that. So I mean, you would expect for him to have been working out. You expect Rich Paul is his agent. You would expect for him to have been telling him to stay ready, at least getting some type of conditioning or something in. So that's a question mark, but and Philadelphia definitely has a chance now. So I definitely agree with you about that. But I feel like they have a good chance to, contend for a title this year. Um, like you said, Milwaukee and Miami, you still got the Bulls that you still have to kind of look out for. You got the Cavs that are a dangerous team, but Philly's definitely right up in that mix, especially with getting a star like Harden, because that duo is going to be something to watch. I'm very excited. And
Yeah.
Brooklyn and Philly play in about a month, I see. So it's going to be kind of like a headline type game.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it is going to be a headline type game, most definitely. But in my opinion, deciding whether which team or deciding which team won this specific trade right here, I just think it's going to take time. I just think time will tell because
Mhm.
depending on whether James and Embiid win a championship within the next 1 to 2 years, or maybe even three, that's going to decide whether that trade
Well,
was worth it. And then Brooklyn, I think they just have more time to do it
mhm.
because Simmons is so young, way
Yeah.
younger
Well,
than Harden.
today, as I know you're saying it's gonna take time, but today, as of right now, like at this moment, like who do you think won? I'm gonna say Philly.
I would say Philly in terms of right now, like this season. I think that they would have a better chance to win with their stuff going on, like with Embiid being the front runner for MVP, and then you're adding James Harden versus with what the Brooklyn Nets are going through with Kyrie playing part time and then Ben Simmons having to come into that and figure all that out. So
Agreed.